What is up, everybody? Thank you for tuning back in. And here we are. The whole trial has taken place between Microsoft and the FTC over the Activision merger. And now we get to wait for that nail-biting moment, whether or not Microsoft is able to finally conclude that deal after the 18 months of drama that we've been through. And during the whole federal proceedings, I want to say that, in my opinion, there was some moments that have taken place that really stacked the deck against the FTC's arguments, all the way from how they conducted themselves to some of the testimony from their key financial expert to help steer the direction of the narrative that they're looking for. And we're going to recap a little bit of it right now. So by the second day on Tuesday, we could clearly see that the FTC had not done their homework and that they were literally trying to wait for this gotcha moment to take place where they could just point their finger and be like, yep, that's it. We got him right there. And especially with Phil Spencer on the stand, they tried to get him to somehow say that Call of Duty was going to become exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. And Phil Spencer even said his testimony on the stand that they were not going to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox and that they would continue offering it to the PlayStation 5. And that's where the FTC even tried to go down this whole line of questioning where they would ask the same question multiple different times in multiple different ways, trying to get them to slip up and say a completely different answer and, again, play gotcha. But that's also where they decided to accuse Phil Spencer and Microsoft of trying to give Activision some kind of payment for clout in the gaming market, and that's where Phil Spencer decided to correct them and school them once again in stating that this was not just some payment to get ahead in the gaming market. This is an investment into the gaming market, into a publisher known as Activision, and is something that they see value, and that therefore it's not a payment. He even made the reference that when you buy a house, you're buying an asset that has value. So it's really a transfer of cash into an asset. And so to try and characterize the $70 billion as somehow spent is incorrect. Financially, it's really moving $70 billion in cash into an asset, which is a game publisher that to us is actually worth more than $70 billion. So it is not spent. I don't understand why Phil Spencer had to explain to the FTC that, again, this isn't spending money, this is investing money, and investing money is something that a practical person understands every single day, because to truly kind of plan for your future, you have to be really good with investing money. But things got even more comedic by the next day on Wednesday after Jim Ryan's video testimony, and we got Dr. Robin Lee to take the stand. He is the FTC's key financial expert that provided all the modeling and data for the FTC's arguments on how Nintendo is not part of the high-end console market and how we're going to have Call of Duty exclusive. He helped craft all the ideals for the FTC's narrative for this entire trial. So right out the gate, Microsoft got to question Dr. Lee first, from how it appears, and from what was reported by the journalists that were there, his answers were actually extremely evasive during this whole line of questioning, which aggravated the hell out of Microsoft's lawyer, Beth Wilkinson. But she started off with wanting to talk about how he clearly defined the market as PlayStation versus Xbox, excluding Nintendo and the PC market, and that they had a serious problem with that, considering how uber successful the Nintendo console has been and how successful their software is, how PC gaming has grown and it's in this incredible market of players and technology, and that also Sony, in the documents that they provided, referred to Nintendo as being a competitor. So right out the gate, they wanted to knock down his argument of how Nintendo is not this competitor in the gaming market, which in my opinion is a real asinine argument. She then asked him to clarify on how he created some of the data for the models that he provided to the FTC on how Microsoft was going to make Call of Duty exclusive. And he decided to tell everybody that he used data from the Gen 8 consoles, which is what was Microsoft's lawyer was quick to point out. We're using old data from an old market to create new data for a new market, which is completely stupid. and that there has been a large change in gaming since Gen 8 to Gen 9, because now gaming has absolutely exploded at this point compared to last gen. And also in Dr. Lee's data, as pointed out by Microsoft's lawyer, is that he forgot to include multi-game subscriptions and cloud gaming, where titles like Call of Duty are taken away fully. Like, they don't really exist in those markets. Microsoft's lawyer pointed out to Dr. Lee that his math almost seemed very hypothetical, and that there was no real factual basis to some of the data that he created, where the FTC tried to interject on that. But even the judge kind of agreed with the Microsoft lawyer that if some of his data was off by just a little bit, that the incentive to foreclose Call of Duty from the PlayStation ecosystem wasn't there, and that there was no factual basis to prove that his data was correct, because he forgot to include a lot of different data points to really graft out a proper ideal of what would happen if Call of Duty was exclusive. It just seemed like he was trying to narrow the scope of the data to fit the narrative that he needed to give to the FTC for this whole court case. So Microsoft's lawyer was quick to point out to Dr. Lee that nobody at Microsoft recommended that Call of Duty be exclusive, and he responded with, yes, they're not going to make it exclusive to the console, but they're going to make it exclusive to subscription services, which she rebutted with, why are we bringing up subscription services when you decided to leave them out of the model that you submitted to the FTC to create the data that you did, that Microsoft would use Call of Duty to foreclose on the PlayStation ecosystem? And it kind of revolved around why the CMA dropped their argument over exclusivity over Call of Duty, because it was a frivolous argument, and the CMA decided to go down the road of cloud competition for their argument. So the CMA kind of got the message that arguing over Call of Duty exclusivity was a frivolous argument, but for whatever reason, the FTC to continue down this whole path of Call of Duty exclusivity, and they geared a lot of their arguments that took place over the past few days during these proceedings over Call of Duty becoming exclusive. And it's just an asinine argument at this point, so I don't even know why Dr. Lee tried to go down this road. Microsoft also had their own financial expert there that provided the courts with data that the judge actually appreciated more, because the judge understood the data better, and it was a much broader scope of data, with everything from players that don't play Call of Duty to how many hours players do play Call of Duty when they do play. And it was just a much more well put together analysis of what would happen if Call of Duty became exclusive. And talk about a real blow to Dr. Lee's argument, with the judge preferring Microsoft's analysis data over the FTC's analysis data. And that's where Microsoft's lawyer wanted to know if Dr. Lee had taken some of these data points into his own analysis, and he confirmed that he didn't even look at some of these surveys, which, in my opinion, that's where it gets really embarrassing for the FTC's argument, for their own expert to say that he completely forgot to look at data to somehow drive some narrative to just provide this frivolous argument for the FTC. So Microsoft then decided to bring up the fact that the FTC has been very reluctant and unreceptive to any kind of deals and agreements that Microsoft could create to kind of remedy the situation with the whole exclusivity of Call of Duty. That's why they've signed multiple 10-year agreements with other industry participants for licensing of Call of Duty, but PlayStation has refused to even sign anything. And like, the FTC has wanted the judge to ignore these agreements completely and to pretend they're not there, which is absolute BS. But in his statement, Dr. Lee told the lawyer for Microsoft that in his analysis, he only looks at agreements that have been signed. And so therefore, because PlayStation didn't sign the agreement, it wasn't included in his analysis. And that's where Microsoft's lawyer decided to really cut him off with a line of questioning he wasn't prepared for, because he's all worried about Call of Duty becoming exclusive. She decided to bring up Final Fantasy 16, a game that technically was developed for Xbox and PlayStation, and that it is currently exclusive. Will we ever see it on Xbox? That's a good question, because again, Final Fantasy 7 also had an Xbox version that has never come to the light, because PlayStation keeps paying for exclusivity. And that's where she brought up Final Fantasy 16, where Dr. Lee said he had heard of the game, and when she brought up the fact that it was exclusive and that there was an Xbox version that's not come out yet, he completely stated that he didn't know what console it was released on. So talk about not knowing the subject that you're supposed to be giving key testimony on in a federal case. Microsoft's lawyer had one final round of questioning for Dr. Lee, and at this point, the judge is going to also get involved because she had some questions of her own during this whole line of questioning. And it started with Microsoft's lawyer asking Dr. Lee whether exclusive games are harmful to competition, where Dr. Lee admitted that exclusivity can have both pro and anti-competitive effects. And Microsoft's lawyer really wanted to know Dr. Lee's opinion on whether Call of Duty will be on PlayStation after the merger, where he stated, "I don't agree that it will be on PlayStation for certainty," but he's arguing that it's likely that the foreclosure of Activision content will occur in the console market. Now, this is where the federal judge, Judge Corley, decided to cut in and demand a clear answer from Dr. Lee on whether it's likely that Activision content will be foreclosed. And he stated he can't say whether Call of Duty is likely to be withdrawn from PlayStation. There's a little bit more back and forth between Judge Corley and Dr. Lee, and she stated that there is a lot of popular games, not just Activision, and that there's no way of predicting what's going to be the most popular game. And she wanted to know why Dr. Lee has not analyzed Call of Duty separately, with Dr. Lee only being able to say that Microsoft is likely to foreclose Call of Duty and Activision titles. Like, he is literally creating a hypothetical statement if you really think about it. And that's where it's just, in my opinion, completely asinine that this individual is able to just give any kind of opinion whatsoever, because he is literally fabricating data. Now, this is where the FTC lawyer is trying to come to the aid of Dr. Lee from the hot water he's got himself in with the questioning he's starting to receive from even the judge. And the FTC lawyer wanted to ask Dr. Lee, can partial foreclosure not only harm consumers, but also affect competition? Where Dr. Lee did not evade the question at this time, and he said yes, just straightforward yes. The FTC lawyer then tried to move the conversation onto Call of Duty being on Xbox and the PC, and this is where Judge Corley once again intervened with a line of questions demanding to want to know why players, consumers that want Call of Duty would simply not play the game on a PC, because she wanted to point out that a lot of consumer households have a PC that is capable of playing these games already at their disposal. So why is there going to be this shift to the Xbox console? And Judge Corley started the questioning off with the Xbox Series S pricing is closer to the Switch. Does it compete with the Switch? Dr. Lee stated there's a Series X and PS5, and the Series S is still in that market. So if you're thinking about a price increase on the Series X, the customers who buy the X console, they are more likely to switch to the PlayStation 5 or to a Switch. So this decides the market definition. Evaluate a price increase on any of the products in the market. Why are we talking about price increase of products in the gaming console market, considering PlayStation raised the price of their console first? And technically, in my opinion, if I'm correct, the disc version of the PlayStation 5 is more expensive than the Xbox Series X. The FTC once again tried to direct the questioning away from a subject they didn't want to feel they wanted to lose at, and bring up cloud and subscription services and how Microsoft was likely to block Activision content from those services. And once again, it's brought up, why are we talking about cloud and subscription services? Because they were not in Dr. Lee's provided model for analysis of the market. It was Gen 8 console data trying to predict Gen 9 without the inclusion of cloud gaming and subscription services. So this is where it's definitely asinine that the FTC is somehow trying to bring these arguments now in because they were forgot to be brought into the analysis, once again showing the FTC did not do their homework. At this point, the FTC and Dr. Lee, in my opinion, are grasping for straws, because Judge Corley has even more questions about the FTC's arguments, asking about why subscription services are being a separate market, because aren't they just a different way to pay for the same games? Dr. Lee tried to compare Xbox Game Pass to Netflix, and in my opinion, those are two totally different products, because I don't remember the last time I had a microtransaction take place in a Netflix movie, but hey, you never know. But she also wanted to know about cloud competition, because how would it have an impact on smaller cloud gaming services, where Dr. Lee responded with, the role that smaller entrants can have can be greater in other mature markets, because if they can't get access to content, then harm from foreclosure could be magnified in the future. So if the smaller guy can't get access to content, then they have no way of pushing themselves in the market for the future. But the only problem is with Dr. Lee's argument is Microsoft has signed all these agreements to give free licensed access to Call of Duty to cloud markets like Boosteroid and Nvidia. They have given licensed agreements to Nintendo. We're seeing a large breadth of companies that will have access to Call of Duty. But if we keep Call of Duty the way it is right now, the only platforms that will have Call of Duty are Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. That's it. So for whatever reason, in his flawed logic with the FTC, Dr. Lee and the FTC, they are trying to keep Call of Duty from reaching a broader audience. And the judge even picked up on this. So by the midpoint of all these proceedings with the whole FTC versus Microsoft trial, Jim Ryan has completely shown that PlayStation is uber competitive. They have created exclusive content that the FTC had no idea existed, because they even tried to argue that, like, oh my God, what if my PlayStation didn't have access to some exclusive Christmas skin that was only on Xbox? Well, have you not heard of Destiny? There's lots of exclusive stuff on PlayStation. It is completely apparent that FTC did not do their homework. Dr. Robin Lee did not do his homework. And that by the midpoint of this trial, like literally Sony has hurt the FTC's argument. Dr. Lee has hurt the FTC's argument. The FTC has hurt their own argument. And it's going to be really interesting if by some chance the judge has really any inkling to give the FTC what they're looking for with this preliminary injunction. This is where I have to agree that with Foss Patents, Mr. Florian Mueller, that there is no legal grounds provided by the FTC with any kind of actual legit evidence that is not hypothetical or imaginative to give the judge any incentive that a preliminary injunction is necessary. And the judge has even taken a little bit of issue with the FTC being completely unreceptive to any remedies that Microsoft has offered, any negotiations that Microsoft has attempted with the FTC. The judge feels that the FTC has basically reacted with the most heavy-hitting decision that they can without taking any steps or due process to avoid getting to the court and in front of her. And that's where she just wonders why the FTC has made some of the decisions that they have, and that how their arguments are completely not factually based. I do want to cover in my next video the closing remarks from the judge towards the FTC, where the embarrassment gets even deeper. I mean, this video was longer than I wanted it to be, but I mean, I can't believe that the FTC has just done so much to botch this case. I mean, if Microsoft gets blocked at this point, I'm going to be completely floored. But to please keep up with it all, to know what's going to happen next, because I really am looking forward to that decision. And also check out the whole video with the closing remarks that I'm going to put out next. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff that YouTube likes to see to help me grow. As always, check out my video end card here, watch my latest video, explore my channel. And I have to tell everybody every single damn time, because I will freaking go down saying it, that in all these console wars, don't listen to anybody. Just go out and play the games you love on the platform you prefer, whether it's console, PC, or mobile. I am Centurion 1307, and thank you for watching.